the live button. Uh, hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. This is Lazarus Chernik, and I made a huge mistake and apparently didn't press the live button enough times. Uh, I'm really sorry, but welcome to United Public Radio Network, 107.7 out of New Orleans. We simulcast on YouTube and Facebook. And I have been talking for 40 minutes, for about 30 minutes straight, to a dead camera. So I am so sorry. My name is Lazarus Chernik. Echo Chernik is the usual host of this. I am her husband and back-end technical support, which is embarrassing to say now that it's closed. I am an art director by trade. I've been art director for 30 years. And that and I am here today to talk about what it means to be an art director and how it influences and helps illustrators. An art director should be an illustrator's best friend. They should also be the project manager's best friend, the client's best friend, because the illustrator often doesn't know anything about the product or service that the project is for. If it's a book, they haven't read the book. If it's a product, they may have never used the product or service. And the business side of the client doesn't really know how to talk to artists. They don't know the language of light and color and shape and positive and negative space and a visual hierarchy and those things. The art director has to be that middle person. Additionally, an art director should put aside their entire personal aesthetic for the benefit of the product. We hire artists that fit the product. And then all we're supposed to do is make sure that the artist executes to the best of their ability their vision. And let's give an example. I have to rush through this because I ran out of time. I spent a lot of time doing this. Oops, it looks like you've been staring at something for a while. It's the first time doing this. I apologize. Let's try again. Okay. We won't talk about that or that. So I'm also an author. I write under the name Lazarus Black, but that's not important. What's important is that this book cover. This book cover was originally art directed by Echo. She didn't do the art for it. She found an artist who mastered aesthetic, who could do brilliant compositions, brilliant designs, and great portraits, but his personal style, his name is Chris Casciano, or Casciano. I have to make sure. But his line work and a way he applies paint, both physical and digital, it just has tons of energy to it. And you can see it right there. And this is the front and back of the finished cover, but this is not what he gave me originally. Echo found him as a present to me, and she art directed him to a point. She just didn't know everything about the project. What she did know was enough to get something that was riveting. This is what he delivered, and I love it. I absolutely loved it. And coming in as an art director, I recognized what this artist brought to this project. He brought composition, he brought energy, he brought beauty, he just brought dynamics everywhere. Fantastic. There were just a few critical details that needed changing for the project. I didn't look at this and say, okay, this is great. Can you repaint it to look like Michael Whelan did it? Some neoclassic style. That's not why we hired him. I didn't ask him to, make monumental structural changes. I didn't say, well, move her arm down or, change. I don't like how the tail shapes. First of all, Echo had already worked with him on sketches to that point. And so, I already agree with how well it looks. But at this point, there were only 3 points of contention that the project needed him to change. First of all, the bell in the background. The bell in the background is a universal shape. It goes back centuries, but to modern audiences, it looks like the Liberty Bell, and they'll think it takes place in Philadelphia. The story takes place in America and Atlanta, but the actual bell in the story is a ancient Chinese Tibetan temple bell. So I needed the shape of that to change. Okay, that doesn't affect his style, doesn't affect his art in any way. Then the sword is a Japanese sword. The character and the story is about Chinese characters. That while there is a katana in the series, it would be way too confusing for the audience. So I asked him to change that to a Chinese sword and gave him reference. Not the most difficult thing to change with his skill level. And then her face. In this particular case, her face was too placid. And while she is a Chinese model, that China's filled with dozens of ethnicities and sub-ethnicities. And so the character in the book is specifically Han Chinese, which has a different facial structure. Also, her face doesn't have the emotions that I really wanted to capture in it. She's a little too serene, a little too she's holding the sword and has, she looks Botoxed. And she's not emoting anything. So it provided him with some reference. And the first thing he gave me back was this. And it's so much better. The bell is correct. From the reference, he changed the bell tower to match. And then he added more buildings in the back. I didn't ask him to do that. He also chose to make the book have a better focal point around her. The moon behind her is more white. He finished painting the tail in the background, but it's not distracting. It's not, your eye doesn't draw your eye to all the way over to it. You just happen to notice it. And he painted her dress darker and added some more details. Again, while it's still beautiful, it doesn't draw your eye away from the magic triangle on the cover. Then he addressed her face. And this is by far much better. It's less in this case about her looking, quote unquote, more ethnically Chinese, because both models are Chinese, but her head is tilted down and is more, engaging. Sure, she's glowering at the audience and, challenging them. She has furrowed eyebrows. She's intent. She's purposeful. She has a reason to exist. She's almost challenging people, which is much different from this face. This one is a bit aloof, like, hey, how are you doing? I just have to be carrying this sword walking across the mall. This one is, I'm ready for action. And that was gorgeous. I approved this. He handed it over to me. Again, there's nothing here that affects his style. It doesn't affect his art. It improves the project. And when he handed it to me, there was only one thing left to be done. The novel takes place in Atlanta, and there's a large threat of the city burning to a crisp. And so I added flames and fire and just recolored it to, be more dramatic and to fit the theme. I also added, a few minor things, like the Hanzi in the back, a little circle there. All the colors are bright. I left some green in there just for juxtaposition to again keep the dynamics. But as an art director, this is a killer win because the illustrator is represented beautifully. There's nothing here that I asked the illustrator to do that he wasn't capable of doing or didn't feel good about. And the project sings. It does everything perfectly. That's what an art director does. So I'm looking to see if we have any questions. I have a new Discord server up. You can find links to it in various places. If I forgot that I was offline when I was advertising that, I'm sorry. The Discord server is called The Professional Artist with Echo Chernik. You should be able to find it. It is open for anyone to join. So Echo and I started our careers together. We graduated art, she a year after me, and my degree is in advertising art direction. And her degree is in illustration. We worked together over the years. We still work together. That she would ask me that when she got a project from an illustrator, from an art director and instructions she might not understand. She asked me, well, what did they mean by this? And I would be able to read, oh, I understand. What they want is that the project is this. They made it, and I would translate the art director's notes for her because sometimes they would use obscure language that, or unique language. Sometimes even I wouldn't understand, but I would have to interpret. I'd have to put myself in their role and figure out what the client actually needed and then pass that information on to her in a way she could understand better. At the same time, there are times in which I would get a project from an artist and I might not understand exactly the language on how to communicate to them. And I would say, how do I explain that I need this? And she would go, oh, well, and she might sketch something out and maybe not use the language I would, but she would use language that she knew an illustrator would understand. And then I would reinterpret that and use that language to the best of my ability. And it would almost always work out the first time. So we improved our careers back and forth. And it's that type of relationship on a micro level that you need to develop with every single client art director that you have. Now, I have my degree in advertising art direction. Not every person who holds the role or title of art director is an artist at all, or has this background, has this education, and almost no one has, access to someone like Echo. So you as the artist have to feel around with them and find out, what do they want? What do they like? How do they talk? Some art directors, in fact, for the larger the company, the more likely you are to meet someone like me with a background and, is willing to work with you and get the entire project, perfect in a way that you are happy with. But sometimes there are companies where they might have an art director who can be overruled by someone else. And it's always good to sort of ask in the negotiation of the project, like, who's the final approval? Who gives the final approval? Because if the art director works with you and says, yeah, this is great, this is approved, and then they might come back a little bit later saying, oh, well, the creative director, my boss, has some changes. I'm like, if it's the word approved is a legal term, that means no more changes. So they should not ever come back to you with something that says that it's not approved. However, they might say, I approve it. I now have to get it, someone above me. There are instances in which, that chain can go up pretty high. Like we did a project with BBC America in which we had to get approval from the art director in New York, the creative director in New York, and the creative director in London simultaneously. Luckily, that project went great. Then there are times in which the art directors can be overruled by someone who takes on a creative director role. who, again, may not be an artist. They may just know what they want. Several times, Echo has worked with projects, and she'll work with an art director and go back and forth on emails, and then suddenly the language in the email changes. And suddenly they're unapproving things that were approved. They claim they are. They are talking about changing things that were changed and restylizing things and asking for completely erroneous things. And those usually turn out to be someone took over, like the art director left or was taken off the project for some reason, and someone else has sat down and is using their emails to do something else. Echo worked on a project recently where she did this entire project based on specifications that were handed to her. She got over halfway through the project, and someone came back and said, all right, now we need to reimagine all these characters, and they have to be, and we're rewriting and their descriptions and changing. That's not supposed to happen. That's supposed to cost extra money. That's extra effort, especially when things have been approved along the process. And that turned out to be some decision maker inside who decided to change the project. They didn't change the art, they changed the project. They literally changed the project. Was initially supposed to be for audience A, and then they decided to change the entire project to audience B and sneak it past the studio and force Echo to change everything. Well, she didn't. She talked to her agent. She talked to them and said, this is not how it's supposed to go. That's everything's been approved. This is the way it how we've gone so far. You're going to need to pay me to redo these things. And that conversation went pretty well. Eventually, that the project was resolved. They decided to go back with the original project ID. And the main reason why you push back is not just for to not do the work. You're pushing back to get more money out of it, because more work is more money. But you also want to make sure that they don't change it to Project C and Project Design D and Project E, and they can drag things out forever. And and unless you stand up front about needing more money for the subsequent projects, they're going to demand that it's all done for the same price. Just be able to get that conversation out of the way earlier. Now, today, the companies that are likely to say, we want lots of changes and we're constantly going to be flux and we don't know if the project's for audience A, B, or C, those companies might not deal with as much because they're the most likely to try and reach out to AI gen tools, because they have no problem sitting there and typing in, redhead holding a bottle 50 times and just hitting reset until they get the redhead that they like, Of course, it's never going to be like what that book cover is. That book cover is powerful. It's specific. It's energetic. It's all about that project, that novel. You can't just apply it to anything else. And that's the main issue with AI being used by an art director. It's that you just can't get specific enough. I mean, yes, you can say, you can start describing things and models, but the reality is the rendering is always the same. If you see a particular character that you like, or a particular model, they're not going to be adjustable in the same way. You ask, if you try and get them to turn their face a little bit, it's not going to be the same face. It's not going to be the same model. It's literally going to change. When you work with an artist, especially one who works with models, you can get and see a dozen photographs of that model and choose the one you want. If you're working with a great artist, the artist will understand exactly the one that you need for that project and give it to you the first time. So they're giving up not just quality, but they're giving up time and time equals money, and bad sales equal money. Um, so there's a huge demand out there for skilled artists, skilled illustrators, and if anything, the role of the art director is the one that's a little in danger, because many clients like the idea of just being able to type in what they want. They don't want to have to explain themselves to an art director. They just, that they want a character who looks like their book. So you just plug in their character's description in the book and they get somebody and they're like, oh, that's good enough. My book cover could have been executed by AI to something that someone else would appreciate, but it would look the same as everybody else's. There's no way I could get Chris's style and energy and intent, and the shape the way it needs. That the composition rules, the triangles, the visual hierarchy, the focal points are all things that you have to understand in order to execute. If you don't understand them, you can't tell an AI gen tool how to get it. And the AI gen tool is generic. It's not going to know what to give you. If anything, it might copy somebody else's, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work for yours, for theirs. So as an art director, I am looking for artists that I can trust. This is a completely new topic, kind of running through because I don't have much time left. The hardest part about being an illustrator is to earn the trust of clients and art directors. I need to know that you are thinking about my project and you are putting thought and a brain behind it, not just painting by numbers, not just copying something. That you need to think about who this character is and what they're doing and why it is and what the product is and why they would be using it. I can't think of all of that for you, and the more you make me work, the harder it is for me, and the less likely I'm going to want to work with you in the future. I'm hiring you because I cannot paint in your style. And so I want you to do things for me. I'm paying you to do them for me. If you give me more work to do, that's not going to help. And so when I'm looking through portfolios of artists, I like to see repeat customers, your repeat clients. You can, this is how you have to build up, but it's lovely to see 10 pieces for 10 different clients, and I can see the quality of art. But the thing that's missing out of it is no one has rehired you. So I don't know if this project was actually accepted. If you did this project for someone, I can imagine an art director going, this doesn't work. This isn't what I need. I have to cancel this project and hire somebody else. And you go, oh, well, and the artist might have done, oh, well, I like this piece. I'm going to put it in portfolio. But if I see the same client in your book, if I see more than one work of art for the same client, I can feel confident that someone enjoyed working with you, that they got what they wanted out of you multiple times, that they went back to you again and again, and that was a good relationship. And that's what I want. I want a good relationship. There are a million incredible artists out there of various skills, various techniques and tools, and levels of experience. But I need someone I can work with. And I will take someone whose portfolio is of less quality if they have consistent clients, over someone who has great projects, great techniques, but only works on single ones. I think the last thing I'll say about that is Personal works are frustrating to see in a portfolio when I'm looking to hire, because that doesn't tell me anything about how well you deal with an art director and instructions. A personal work off the cuff, yes, you might, but I have encountered dozens of experiences where I've hired or worked with or taught, leaned over the shoulder and taught artists who have a very particular style and vision. And halfway through the project of trying to get them to change and do things for things, they'll just throw their hands up and say, "No, this is just what I do. This is my vision. Take it or leave it." No, it's a project. There are people's jobs on the line. My client has employees. I'm an employee. If this is for a product, the retail employees, the people who stock the shelves, they are paid by this product selling. If the art is wrong and people don't buy it, then everybody's job in the entire chain is at risk. This is where art is incredibly important, incredible for the entire process. It is a single point of failure for ad campaigns and graphic design campaigns, which is why you get committees involved and why you get people, sticking their hands in their noses in it to make sure that it is what they think it should be. But that's the art director's role, is to control and manage that single point of failure so that it doesn't fail. And so it's completely happy for everyone. So thank you very much for joining The Professional Artist. Again, I am so sorry for being late. More than likely, you're going to come back to this after the fact and watch the recording. Again, this has been the United Public Radio Network, 107.7. I'm going to get murdered for the dead air. And Echo Chernik says hi and sorry she couldn't be here. And if you have any more questions for me or about art direction, go ahead and put it in any of the chats or Discord. And if I see it, I'll respond if I can. Thank you very much. Oh, and the only thing I have personally to promote is my author career, which is at https://lazarus.black. Not .com, .black. That is, those are my books. That's me as an author. And thank you very much for being here. Take care. Bye-bye.